You're listening to the Absolutely Cosmic Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Absolutely Cosmic Podcast with your host, Joshua Salgado. And today, I'm going to tell you something so phenomenal. You guys will be, listen, this is a groundbreaking discovery. I have discovered the most valuable currency, the most valuable thing in the world today. It's more valuable than Bitcoin. It's more valuable than Ethereum, whatever crypto, NFTs, money itself, gold, silver, whatever it is more valuable than that. So just hear me out right now. The thing that is more valuable than anything else in the world is time. Boo-hoo. I just like clickbait intro, whatever. I didn't. Listen, hear me out now. The most valuable thing is time. And the reason for this, now let's get this mic a little closer. The reason for this is because we are revolving around it. Our world revolves around night and day, time, hours, minutes, seconds, years. I'm not putting them in linear order for a reason. But it is a perceptive thing. And it is the one thing that we do not get back. We age and we get older, and then we eventually will pass, right? There is no way to get back the youth. There's no way. The last moment right before I said this word, as I'm saying this, the words previous to this, I cannot get those back. I can never get more time. I cannot get the time that I spent, right? So let's break it down into 2 points. But before we break it down into the consumer and then as a producer or a creator or a, I guess, business, right? The value versus consumer, right? I'm going to break it down and kind of give an explanation. So let's look at the value. And I said this in my podcast interview with Dylan, right? I talked about Brian Johnson. He did the Bootstrap Braintree. He did Braintree for PayPal, right? He created Braintree and sold it to PayPal and was part of PayPal essentially. And he was a multimillionaire. He's trying to reduce his age. Now, obviously, he can't actually do that. Like, time cannot be changed, right? But he's trying to rejuvenate his health so that he can get more of it, right? But here's the thing. So time is one of those things that you don't get any more of. But where you place your time, where you spend your time, right? You spend it, right? Is very important, right? If you're starting out on something, right? You're starting out a business, such as Absolutely Cosmic podcast, right? Such as Cosmic Absolute, this t-shirt website, my websites, right? I am spending time towards that, right? So I may not have monetary or resource plethora, right? I may not have a plethora of resources, a plethora of money to be able to throw at a business, right? And create. I may not have a currency of an audience quite yet. We're building that though, right? But I may not have anything that equates to how we view and value, I guess, wealth and riches, right? But what I am rich in is time, right? Because I am not this multi-million-dollar person that's being strained over, super busy, right? I have more time to dedicate, to spend into building something, to spend into working out, to spend into building knowledge, to spend networking and meeting people and connecting with people. So that time that I have, right? Let's bring this closer. Hopefully you guys can hear me. That time that I have, I will dedicate to something, right? That value. I am rich in time. I am wealthy in time. I am probably one of the wealthiest people on earth because I have so much time and ability to dedicate, right? The ability to spend my time towards something fruitful, right? So the reality is and look at this. Okay, so you have rich, right? I'm rich in time, right? Because I have the ability to spend that time, right, on building something, right? Or on fruitful things. But let's take it a step further, right? So wealth, right? Wealth, right, is the ability to sustain value, to sustain currency, right? If time is the ultimate currency, right? the ability to sustain time or to utilize time efficiently or make it compound, right? So I will transfer my asset of time into hopefully wealth, into hopefully an audience, into hopefully my physique and fitness, right? To be fitter and stronger. Value my time, right, of reading and compound that into knowledge, right? My training will compound into knowledge. Anything that you spend your time on, you should want to spend the majority. And when I mean the majority, I mean in excess of 70% of your time, right, on compounding, right? Now, this is outside of sleep. This is outside of resting. Let's say you're sick or you're injured. Like, obviously, right? Those are factors out of our control. But instead of taking time, taking time on TikTok, right? Taking time on Instagram. And I may sound hypocritical because I put content out on there, right? And I'm not going to say, oh, my content's okay. But what I'm saying is in excess, right? So all the time, right? If I spend 10 minutes here and 10 minutes here and 10 minutes here, eventually, if I can consolidate and grab from those non-compounding sources of time or expenditure of time, I will be able to allocate more time, which is a resource, which is the most valuable resource as this podcast is going, and put it into something compounding, put it into something that can save me more time, right? That can give me more time. Let's say, and I take time out of my day, right? I spend and take time out of my day, allocate time to go work out. That may afford me more years to live, a higher quality of life as I get older, or even right now, right? Exactly. So the ability to take that time and spend it somewhere else. Let's talk about what most people my age or a little bit younger kind of spend their time on, the college age, right? Alcohol, partying, drugs potentially, like, chasing women, and that's a whole podcast that I have planned out. But chasing women, chasing, girls chasing dudes, whatever, right? People are allocating all this time that is fleeting. Time is fleeting. We will lose it. You cannot get it back. You cannot get back your age. So spending this time in something that there is no return on investment, right? And I'm talking about this in a business aspect, because the reality is that if I spend my time in something that is fruitful, I will be able to compound it so that my time becomes more and more valuable, right? Let's look at it this way. If I go and become a doctor, right, I will end up leaving, medical school after all those years, after your residency, right? I will end up, I will end up having a higher price per hour, right? I will have a higher salary. My time is valued. So if I spend more time right now dedicating it to becoming a doctor, I am not becoming a doctor. I am not a doctor, but it's just an example. If I spend that time to dedicate myself into something like becoming a doctor or becoming an engineer or becoming an excellent real estate agent or becoming whatever it is, then your value will be much more increased. It'll be increased. It'll be a higher rate. So instead of 1 times the value of your time, right, you may get 5 or 10 or whatever it is, right? You will increase that time exponentially if you spend it in the right spot. Because right now I can spend 80 hours a week and have very little monetary value to spend on a business or on a goal or whatever it is, right? But if I spend 80 hours a week, right, and obviously realistically, you can't say, oh, spend 80 hours a week working out. Like, no one can spend actually that much, but this is for the example, right? I spend 80 hours a week working out. My return on investment when I get that physique will be up there, right? The profit that I make from spending my time, right? So if you start thinking as if you're a $1 million mogul, right? You're a billionaire, right? And your time is the biggest asset, is how much money you have in the bank account, right? It's a time account, right? Life is a time account, accounting for your time, right? If much like Dave Ramsey, let's say Dave Ramsey's, podcast, I've seen a lot of clips where he talks about spending, right? If you do not allocate money in a budget, right, your money will disappear or fall into different cracks, right? If you do not allocate time into specific places, that time will fall into different cracks. How many times have I gone on my phone and scrolled and then realized, like, oh snap, oh snap, That's what's happening, right? Oh snap, I just lost all this time, right? And I'm just spending it on YouTube Shorts like a Cocomelon baby, right? Exactly. So you realize that you spent so much time doing something that has no return on it, right? If I read a book on sales, negotiation, even if it's a fictional book, right, I will still get some sort of the literacy skill that I get from that will be higher value, because then I could read more complex topics and texts and have an underlying, if I read the Hunger Games, and I've never I've never read the Hunger Games, right, as a kid, which is really surprising. But if I read the first book and the second book, or Harry Potter, I read Harry Potter as a kid. If I read the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and now there's all these different series, right? This offshoots now. J.K. Rowling's a literary genius. I spent time to read that first one. I will understand the second one. I will understand a higher level of concept. If I take the time to dedicate into a skill, I take the time to dedicate into a goal, I take the time to dedicate into a business, I take the time to dedicate into a novel, I take the time to dedicate into my health and gym, your level of expertise will go up, right? If I take the time to dedicate, study, learn, and implicate how to build a business, then I will be able to successfully grow that business. So then eventually my time will become more valuable, but I may unlock more time as you're dedicating it to make you more money. So you're transferring one currency, time, into money, right? I'm not saying this to sound greedy, but life is fleeting, right? Life is fleeting. So you must make the most that you have of it, right? You know, circling back to Brian Johnson is trying to get back the time that he lost, potentially a biological time, right? The time that he does not have his body's wear and tear, right? The age. He's talking about all his different organs and systems in his body, almost like a machine, right? Has different ages. So he's trying to get back all the time that he lost when he wasn't taking care of himself, right? He was spending his time, he was spending his health, right? So if you think of it in that prefix, in that pretexture, is that even a word, pretexture? It's not a word. But if you think of it in that context, that's the better word. If you think of it in that context, that by spending your time, you become more valuable, to have a higher compounding, higher return on investment, right? Then you realize that time is the most valuable thing, because one of the people that I listen to actually a little bit is Justin Waller, Alex Hermosi, right? Let's break down Justin Waller. He says it. Every millionaire on the internet says it now, and I don't know how. Like I said, you can't trust everybody, right? But the reality is this: they talk about how they're always trying to save time. Oh God, what's his name? There's a fitness guy. Oh my God, I can't think of him, but he always talks about how he only has paper plates. He only has forks. He only has paper fork, plastic forks. He has like everything is throwable, right? It's throwawayable. He doesn't want to wash dishes because he's wasting time on that when he could be making money or utilizing it with his family and friends and things like that, right? So that's where I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying don't do the dishes. What I'm saying is don't go out and party if you're not already, if you can't allocate that time somewhere else. If you can allocate that time somewhere else, you better be, rather than partying, because partying, there's no investment. In a way, it's negatory against another currency, which is health, which health and time, I guess, are kind of intertwined, right? So it's the same thing. If you're going out partying every weekend and you're spending your time that way, you're not going to be able to allocate that time that you lost drinking or running around like an idiot to actually building yourself up in some aspect of one of your goals. And we all have goals, but it's, again, how bad you want it. How much time are you willing to spend? Because I will tell you right now, if I want to grow, if I want to achieve something, I will find time. I find time, right? Because I have 24 hours a day, right? 24 hours a day times 7 or times 365. That algorithm, that equation, right? Where do I allocate my time? Because so let's say I break it down 1 hour, right? That's 60 minutes. If I spend 10 minutes, right? If I spend 10 minutes out of that hour on TikTok, right? That you literally just spent a sixth. of that hour that could have gone to, right? If I have an extra hour every day from TikTok or from endless scrolling of the zombie feed, right? I can save even 10 minutes, dedicate 10 minutes to reading, dedicate 10 minutes to just doing some push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, right? If you have a pull-up bar, some pull-ups, right? Or going on a run, 10 minutes of just sprinting, right? Because in that moment, time seems much longer, right? Because it is less, you don't want to do it, right? Because you're suffering a little bit. But spending that time that may seem longer, right? You're getting more time, I guess, in a weird reality way, right? You're getting more time and you're doing something that compounds, that betters future you, right? Again, like Dave Ramsey said, if you do not allocate every dollar, every penny in your bank account with a budget every month or every week or however it needs to be, you're going to lose money within the cracks very easily. I've experienced, every human being experiences that, right? So think about that with time. If I don't allocate all 24 hours to doing something valuable, then I will not grow. I will lose a significant amount of time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to miss a lot of time. And let's equate it over 100 years, right? Because that's kind of, I mean, humans live about 60 to 80 years on average, right? But 100 years is like the max, right? That's where everyone like kind of wants to be, right? I'm going to live to 120 unless the good man upstairs pulls the plug early, right? But my goal is to live to 120 years old. Unless, again, if the good man upstairs pulls the plug, then that's my time, right? But think about it that way. If you compound 10 minutes every day, right? 10 minutes every day, you're already at the end of the week. If I spend 10 minutes on TikTok every day, right? And it may seem harmless, right? I just lost over an hour, a little over an hour, right? 70 minutes, right? 70 minutes times 52. Let's just do some math. So just within 1 year, if I scroll on TikTok for only 10 minutes a day, right? That time lost is about, on average, 61 hours a year I lose to TikTok. Do I really want to lose, or whatever it is, right? The scroll, the doom scroll. Do I really want to lose, or drinking, right? That's only 10 minutes a day, but compounded throughout the whole year. All right, let's times it by 100. Oh, okay. Give me a second. Let's do 100 years, right? So if I spend 10 minutes a day, oh, puppy, hey, tidy. If I spend 10 minutes a day, if I spend 10 minutes a day losing out on TikTok doom scroll, at the end of my life, I spend 50 days, 50 days over a month and a half, I lost with just 10 minutes a day. Imagine that on a larger scale. Imagine you drinking one night a week. You're losing 8 hours, right, to drinking, right? Because, well, actually a day and a half if you drink. Because if you drink pretty heavily a night, right, you could spend 8 hours easily drinking through the night, right? You're losing sleep, which means you're losing health. You're putting poison in your body, which means you're losing health. But on top of that, you're really losing a day and a half. So if you drink a day and a half every week, see where it compounds, and then think about it too. On that end, on the left end, right, of the current time, but then your future time, because if you're drinking that much, you're shortening your time. So really, you're getting this much and this much and this much, right? Time is fleeting, right? You're from both ends, from the death end forward, you're bringing death closer, right? But then inevitably, you're spending that time, the current time, closer, right? That's spent drinking, right? Now you're bringing both ends together like a time scale. Now you have less time. See what I mean? But what if I spend 2 hours every day, right? Which would equate to 14 hours a week working out, let's say. And on average, right? And that's kind of an example, right? 14 hours a week. So by spending 14 hours a week, yeah, that's a lot of time up front, even if it's 10 minutes a day, right? How do I know that I'm not extending my lifespan to that 100 years, or for me, 120 years, right? Exactly. Time is fleeting because you do not realize that on both ends, if you are not utilizing time in a healthy way to build it up, right? You're losing time on that end from death. You're bringing death forward, but you're also your current timeline, your living timeline, you're bringing closer, right? And you're just basically bringing the ends of the parentheses closer and closer. And you're minimizing the story because your life is a story. All right. So with that being said, that is kind of my rambling. I thought of this and I was like, I need to get this out. I don't even want to write it down. I need to get it down because time is the most valuable thing. Hands down, it is more valuable than Bitcoin. It is more valuable than money. It is more valuable than NFTs. It is more valuable than gold, right? Time intertwined with health, right, is the most valuable thing any human being can get. Because if I dedicate that time to a skill or a goal, potentially the rate of earning increases infinite fold, right? Because if I spend my time doing something, eventually that skill will grow, and that means that value grows. So then if you transfer your time for money, that means that you're...
Thank you for listening. Consider absolutely smashing the subscribe button for more content like this.